Hi, and welcome back to the Mortgage Broker Broadcast. My guest this week is financial advisor Jason Murgatroyd. The reason why I wanted to get Jason onto the podcast was really for him to explain his journey because he has been in the banking world. He's also been an employed mortgage broker. He's also been a self-employed mortgage broker, and now he's a financial advisor. So I do talk to quite a few brokers that are looking to become financial advisors or see their future in financial advising. So I thought it'd be great to get Jason onto the podcast, hear his story, explain what he did, why he did it, the choice he made, and all those sorts of things. So yeah, let's get Jason onto the podcast. So welcome to the podcast, Jason. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Craig. Yourself?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Very good. Thank you. Finally, get you onto the Mortgage Broker Broadcast podcast. Finally, you are a regular guest on the Mortgages, Money and More podcast that we do, which is aimed at, as some of the technical jargon would call it, B2C. So business to consumer podcast that we do, all about financial advising. And we've just recorded one about things to avoid when investing. So we do record that on a regular basis. However, I've prized you away from behind the mic and behind the screen, and now getting you on the Mortgage Broker Broadcast, which is recorded audio and video. So this goes out on YouTube, and various other providers are available. And yeah, we're going to get you onto this podcast, hear about you, your journey, your background, what you've done, where you're going, and yeah, is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, well done on getting me actually on camera. So yeah, that's a first.
Yeah, that has taken a while. It's only taken 18 months, I think. I think we are sort of well over a year into the other podcast. So yeah, it has taken a little while, but we've got there in the end.
Yeah.
So, for those people that don't know, so obviously the idea is of the podcast was to talk about you and your journey, what you've been doing, what the future looks like, what you're doing now, what the future looks like of financial advising from your point of view. But do you want to just give people, let's do a bit of introduction first of all, and then we'll get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I mean, currently, yeah, I am the financial advisor at CS Financial Group. I've been advising for donkey's years since the early 1990s, in fact, late 80s. Back in
30 years. Is
the
that
bad
30
old
years?
days, yeah. And
30
back
years?
then, yeah, we predominantly we worked for insurance companies, and I worked for the co-op for CIS. And and very soon it became a regulated industry, and before we knew it, we're all qualified up and out there, and suddenly change of title to financial advisor. And how things have changed over those 30 years, it's massive.
So just so we're clear, you were advising 30 years ago. You were a financial advisor 30 years ago.
Yeah, well, I was. Yeah, I can't believe I'm actually saying that. So yeah, 30 years ago, crikey Moses. Yeah, so I've been doing it a long time, a long time.
Seen changes within the industry, certainly, I bet.
Yeah, massive changes. I mean, back in those days, they were the bad old days. The bad old days when endowments were being advised to clients, and we all know what happened with endowments and mis-selling and God knows what else. But it's there's been so many things put in place now for from a protection point of view for the client. And to be a financial advisor these days, there's quite a few qualifications that you need to gain to prove that you can actually do it, and yeah, it's quite hard to get into, but once you're in it, yeah, it's a job for life.
I think it is. I think the big thing is at the minute, what I've done a lot of talking about and what I'm sort of seeing is that the average age of the financial advisor is reducing, because a lot of advisors who have been doing it a long time are retiring, selling up, or retiring. There's a lot of people leaving the industry, a lot of financial, like a lot old school. Not you, Jason. You're not old school.
Yeah,
You're young
I'm
school.
definitely
No,
not getting younger doing this job.
no. But I mean, the sort of, I think the people that
Yeah,
we're part of Open Work Network. I'm always upfront about that, and I see a lot of practice principals, a lot of sole traders, financial advisors retiring. There are a lot of people retiring. That's just within open work, and that's the same across a lot of networks and a lot of directly authorized financial advisors. I think the scary thing for me, and is something that we talk about, is that the need for financial advice. We've gone off on a gender. We've gone off on a piece already. We've gone off on
Yeah,
a piece.
it's
Oh yeah,
right.
that sounds really good. We've
No,
gone
we've
off on a
gone off.
tangent. We've gone
Yeah,
off
off
piece,
piece,
and
but
we've
that's
gone off on a
fine.
tangent.
Sometimes it's good to go off piece. Let's do it.
No, I think it is because like, the thing is, like right now, in the world that we're in and what's happened over the past few years, the need for financial advice has grown even more than what it was before.
Massively.
But there are less advisors doing it because there's less advisors, there's
Yep.
more advisors leaving the industry
Yep.
because they're retiring, which is great news to bringing in new blood and people getting into the industry, but
Yeah.
which we're seeing from a broker point of view, but we're not sort of seeing so much from a financial advisor
Financial
point of view.
advice.
So yeah,
Yeah.
does that
And
make
why do you
sense?
think that is?
Great question back to the host there, Jason. Well done. Well done.
Yeah. Well, do
Yeah,
you know what? I'll take that question. I think there's many reasons, but I do also think that a lot of younger people don't necessarily get the whole idea behind financial advice. So, this is I suppose, an expensive. When they're in educational years, that's really when you need to be getting these points across to young people to understand how to manage finances, to understand what investments are, and so on and so forth. And that's missing, So they don't kind of have that knowledge, and they don't have that understanding to think, is this something that I'm any good at, and is this something that I do fancy actually picking up in a career sort of way. And I think now a lot of the appeal might be is that you're right. There's lots of people in need of advice, and there are diminishing numbers of advisors. So people are attracted because it's just being, sold to them that there's an opening there for people if they want to become a financial advisor. But I think, I do know there's a lot of financial advice firms now that will go into schools and they will do sessions with young people and try and get them to, to grasp some of the basic things, which I think is like phenomenal concept to be doing that. But one of the big areas from an advisor point of view where it's really lacking is that women advisors. And yeah, I think we're starting to see a lot more women advisors coming through the ranks now, which is great to see that, and that's refreshing.
definitely. No, I totally agree with you. We sort of see more. Like Open Work recently did sort of a Women in Financial Services awards and actual
Yeah,
conference, which was great. And so yeah, like I think it is very much about just like inclusion and diversity, full stop, isn't it? So
yeah,
it doesn't really matter.
yeah. It's good.
That's
It's
that's
progress in the
that's
right direction. Yeah, totally.
absolutely. And I'm very fortunate enough that I'm part of again with Open Work. We have a group, we get together regularly in terms of look at inclusion and diversification from a point of view of the network. So, and diversity as a network, which is great. Like that is such a good thing and refreshing thing to hear from a network point of view, which is can be seen sometimes as a large corporate-esque fuddy-duddy kind of tanker trying to turn, when actually they are trying to do the right thing and move things forward, which is great to see.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I don't know whether I answered that question very well, to be fair, but yeah, that'll teach me for posing a question to the host, won't it,
To
and then answering it myself not very well.
Yeah,
But
you gave yourself a leading question that you didn't
I
even
did
answer.
indeed, I did indeed,
No,
but I haven't
I'm
got the
joking.
answer as to why people don't seem attracted to to join as financial advisors. But yeah, maybe you guys out there might be able to shed light on the reasons.
Let's look, like for me, Jason, I've talked about before. I fell into financial services. I was lucky enough. Did I wake up? Was I 16-year
Mm,
old, 18, 19, 21-year old? I thought, "Do you know what? I want to work in financial services." No way. Like
no.
I went straight into travel industry, YTS, and saw as much as the world as
YTS.
cheap as I possibly could.
Now
Well,
you're
that was the
talking.
benefit. Yeah, the salary was shocking. The perks
£28
were
a week.
amazing. Yeah, exactly. 27.50, and I went up to
Yeah.
35 after my
Yeah.
second year.
Aye,
Oh
when you
no,
turned
I got took on
18.
after my first year, £27.50, whatever it was. My second year, I got took on full-time employment, which then was about 150 quid a week, and I thought I'd won the lottery.
Can't believe
So
it, can you? Honestly, cannot believe it. But having
no,
said that, back in those days, it were like 30p a pint, weren't it?
it was.
Oh dear. But yeah, they were
You
the
lucky. I need some sort of sound effect there where you can go like a kind of thing. So getting back to your point, and I think I don't. And what I was trying to explain was that people won't see it. Like I didn't see it. I didn't think that's something I want to do, kind of thing. I fell into financial services. How did you get into it? How?
same as you fell into it. You know, honestly, and I've told this story a few times. I was with my mate, and my mate had this older brother of his, and everybody looked up to him. You know, he was just a right good-looking lad. He just, yeah, he just had everything. And I remember him rocking up, and we were all sat in pub beer garden, and he rocked up in this new car, and I looked at this new car, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm in awe of this guy. The car in question was
I was going to say that's the next. That's the thing, guy.
was a blue Nissan Bluebird. Just,
Right. Right.
which is just, Google it, guys. You'll see it somewhere. But in the day, this was just like amazing. Anyway, he came in and we sat down and we were having a drink, and I was saying, you know, where you work, how have you got the car? And he said, well, I'm working for CIS. I'm working for an insurance company now. He said, oh, it's a great job, great job. He said to me, he said, be perfect for you. He says, you've got gift at gab. He says, that's all you need. He said, and you could be rocking about in the Nissan Bluebird. And before you knew it, I were, in one of his offices for CIS in a local office, and yeah, there I was being interviewed. Before you knew it, I got the job, and that was it. I just sort of fell into it, really.
Was the Nissan Bluebird? Because when you sort of say Nissan Bluebird to me, I'm not sort of like, I don't know, like
What, you're
it,
not impressed? Do you
well,
not? Come on, were you much of a car man?
very much a car man, very much a
Yeah,
car man.
I probably don't sound one now. I've mentioned the Nissan Bluebird, but I suppose I was only 18. I was only 18, and it was a handsome looking car, and it was in a dark blue. It looked awesome. It looked awesome. But yeah, that's what inspired me. The fact that this lad just had the
Look, I'm
car.
not knocking inspiration. Absolutely, don't get me wrong, Jason. I'm not knocking inspiration whatsoever. I'm just thinking about Nissan Bluebirds. That's all.
Yeah, you're thinking Donald Campbell. That's what you're thinking from a Bluebird point of view, isn't it?
Yeah.
The world speed record.
I'm going to try. I'm trying to work out how I can replace my face on the podcast with an actual image of the Nissan Bluebird, but I'm not. I'm not working out that way. So inspiration.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
financial
So
inspiration.
yeah, I mean, back then when I'd started doing the job, I remember I had to go on a training course down into Leeds, and there must have been about 20 or 30 people there on this training course, and quite a few of them were ex-miners. So obviously back in the day, the pits were closing, and they were all looking for alternative employment. And yeah, so the training courses were busy and full of people. But the training course, you come off the back of that into the big wide world, and the job literally all what it consisted of, you were literally driving around. You were given an area. So I was fortunate enough to get Ilkley, Addingham, Burley, and Wharfdale, which are lovely areas to be working in. And I had a client bank that was literally given to me. And back then, what you were doing, you were literally going around and collecting money off customers for the premiums for their policies, which were endowment policies. And, the majority of my time, I was literally driving around from street to street to street, knocking on doors, collecting £1 here, £5 there, 50p here. And you can't believe it now looking back that's how it all began. But we obviously used to sell the endowments. We used to sell life insurance. We used to sell house insurance. We used to sell car insurance, but it was all door to door. And there were existing client banks that we were working through. and did that for 18 years in total, and I worked my way through the ranks at the CIS, and became area manager finally. And at that point, then I was looking after a team of financial advisors. I think there were 10 or 12 advisors, dealing with recruitment, compliance, and training for the new people coming through. But then, I went from the co-op then after 18 years, moved across over to Barclays Financial Planning, and spent quite a few years at Barclays Financial Planning, which was very different. That was sat in a high street branch of Barclays, and clients came, saw me, we had the appointment, we did the advice, and clients invested a lot of money through the Barclays options that we had to offer. And then I must admit, I was probably, had somewhat of a sort of, I don't know, I think I've been doing it that long. I just kind of got a little bit to the point where I felt like I just stuck in a bit of a rut. So I took a little bit of time out, did something unrelated to financial services. It was at the time when all the RDR was coming on, so all these new qualifications, and I just, my head was just, I think, consumed with everything financial services, and I just wanted a bit of headspace, I think, and so I took this time out. But unfortunately, when I came back then to sort of come back into the job, the new RDR rules had come in, which meant you had to have a certain qualification, which were all in addition to what qualifications we already had. And I didn't have the qualification, so I couldn't get back into it, and it was pretty frustrating. But that's when I ended up taking up mortgage brokering for a bit, which was something I was licensed to do and had experience of, and was quite happy doing that for a few years, and it was great. I always had it on my sort of time horizon that I'd get back to gaining the qualification, which I then started to do some years later after becoming a mortgage broker, and did that all off my own back. And came out at the end of that, qualified, and here I am today, back doing what I was doing 30 years ago.
Wow. Full circle.
Full
and you're still
circle.
driving that Nissan Blue.
Nissan Blue. Never got the
Fred.
Nissan Bluebird, I'm afraid, mate. Never got the Nissan Bluebird. But I suppose the current day equivalent would be the Nissan Skyline, which is pretty tasty
Yeah,
bit
see,
of a
yeah,
sports car.
see, I'm with you now on that. I'm with you now on the Skyline.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I'm just, yeah.
yeah.
I think, to be fair, the funny thing, what I was inspired by a guy, but he had a Escort RS Turbo. So
The white
see,
one,
look,
or
actually, his
coloured
was
one.
red. His was red.
Right. So it was the Mark II then. So the Mark ones
Yeah.
are all white, if you remember. They were the more
Right.
square shaped ones. Mate, I know RS turbos inside out. Yeah, and they all got nicked, didn't they? Most of them.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Certainly did. But anyway, this is not
Yeah,
Top Gear or Fifth Gear
you'd
or
think it
the
was, wouldn't
Grand
you?
Tour or anything like that.
No,
So,
definitely not.
what I'm just keen to understand, Jesse, is like from you, because you've been a broke, like up until obviously you've done the financial advising, you've been employed broker, self-employed broker, and then moving to financial advising. So you've been doing the financial advising back in the financial advising space a couple of years now. Fair to say, like coming for 2 years, just over 2 years.
Yeah. 2 years. Yeah, pretty much exactly. Yeah.
So if I'm a broker sat listening to this, what how does the financial advisor world, not back end, so not research at this stage or anything like that, but from a client point of view and your interaction with the client, how does that how does it differ from a mortgage broker to being a financial advisor?
In many respects, it doesn't. In many respects, it's the same. And you taking out of the equation the analysis side of things, I think, is what makes a big difference. But no, it again, it's all about dealing with people. It's about building rapport. It's about listening as much as talking, if not listening more than talking. And it's about treating people right with respect, and delivering over and above what it is that you promise. So I think it's very, very similar. There isn't a great transition in terms of, you know, those sort of attributes that are required to be successful either.
Which I think is a great analogy, because if you think about it, those sorts of things are very similar. So if you're a great mortgage broker, you're able to build rapport and gain trust and things like that. It's then you've got that from a broker point of view. You're going to have that from a financial. You're not going to lose that. You're going to have that from a financial advising point of view as well. So it's interesting to hear that it's still all about service and trust with the
Yeah,
client. Is that what you're saying?
it is what I'm saying, and that's what I want to get across to, you know, anybody who's potentially thinking about moving or making that transition from mortgage advisor to financial advisor. The two roles are very closely linked, and you know, it's those attributes, which, you know, those are the sorts of things that you can't really teach or train people to do. It
Exactly. You can't.
either comes naturally or it doesn't, sort of thing. And yeah, it's people, if anybody's any good at mortgage advising, I suspect they'll be good at financial advising.
I think that's a great point, because it's, like I said, there's no book of how to be a successful mortgage broker, because that book will change and it get rewritten every single day. Whereas, and that's the same from a financial advice point of view, is like anything can be taught. So everything from a mortgage broker point of view can be taught. So research, criteria, placing cases, all those sorts of things, there's help and support there, and that can be taught. It's the same with financial advising. Of the back end stuff, it's like your research and your risk and everything like that can all be taught.
Yeah,
But fundamentally, your skills are
yeah,
still the same skills, whether you've been a mortgage broker or a financial advisor.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it goes beyond mortgage brokers as well. You know, it's anybody in trades. You know, there was somebody that I was speaking to the other day, and it was about plumbing, and I was speaking to this person. I was in an ensuite done, speaking to this plumber, and do you know what? It wasn't like speaking to your typical plumber. It was like this guy was just different. It was just treating me, and he was talking to me at a level that I totally understood and grasped, and I didn't feel unease. I felt like you know, I was really getting into what he was advising about the plumbing aspects that I was asking about. And I just thought, this guy's got those typical attributes, the ones that he could be a really good mortgage advisor or financial advisor. It's just because he was just taking that time and treating me in that way that, yeah, it's regardless of whatever sort of trade or occupation you're currently in.
Good. I think that is, it's a good analogy in terms of that. I think it's just about as a person. It's like the same when people are looking to leave the industry, they're working and become mortgage brokers. If you've got that, and some really fly at it and some don't, and I think it's down to your core skills, your core values, and who you are as a person that will make it work. And whether that's, like you say, plumbing or financial advising or anything like that, if you've got that kind of personality and attribute to be successful, you will be successful in whatever you do.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, point really well made. Yeah.
So when we look at, so we've sort of said in terms of the front end stuff, there's not much difference in terms from a mortgage broker point of view. We're now going to flip that total on the head, because I'm guessing, and from what I understand,
Yeah.
like when you've done your first appointment, you've spoken to your client, you've done your fact find, you've done your KYC, you know everything about that customer, you know the risk and all their attitude to risk and all those sort of things. So you've done the full fact find. You then go away and do your research. It's not a case of, let me get on Criteria Hub, let me get on to Knowledge Bank, let me get on to Mortgage Brain or anything like that, because that just doesn't exist, does it?
Yeah.
Like if we can sort of try and work through a bit of a quick process of,
Mm,
after you've seen that client, you've done your fact find,
yeah.
what happens after then?
And yeah, wow. So if I think about initially looking at mortgage broking and all those things that you've mentioned, your criteria hubs, your mortgage brain, these are all systems and software systems that basically help you. Well, will tell you what you should be recommending to your client. So they kind of take a lot of the work out of it. Not all of it, but quite a lot of it. The big difference with financial advice is that for one situation, there are probably 100 solutions, and those 100 will all be right solutions. It's just there are so many different factors that you've got to take into account. Taxation is just one of them. And, when you think about taxation and the different types of taxation you've got to consider, you've got all the tax allowances to think about. And that often can make the difference between recommending one solution and not another one. But it takes you such a long time compared with a mortgage case, that is. Whereas a mortgage case, somebody'd walk in the office, say, I need a decision in principle today. I've made an offer on a house. Within a few hours, they'll have their agreement in principle. And there's probably another couple of hours worth of work to get that case fully packaged and sent off. From a financial advice point of view, you're talking weeks. You're talking, just that initial meeting and that initial sit down and KYC, which is your fact finding with the client, is going to be 2 hours plus. Don't forget, we talk about holistic advice, and it is exactly that. We're not just looking at this £10,000 investment in isolation. We're looking at everything else with that client situation and scenario, because we want as much information as we could possibly get, because we know we'll be sat in isolation soon, sat in that darkened room thinking, right, gosh, where do I start with this, putting this together for this client? And you've got to do a fantastic job, because you're charging the client for your expertise. So it's got to be good. It's got to be 5-star. So if you're missing bits of information that you've not gathered at that KYC meeting, then you're either going to make a really bad job of it, or you've got to go back and say, unprofessionally, I'm sorry, but I forgot to ask you this. So there's just so many factors that you've got to consider, and there are so many options and so many different routes you could take, and there are still plenty of those routes that are still the right route for the client. It's just how you justify the route that you've taken, and that involves all sorts of technical things like taxation.
I think.
Have I put you off?
No. Because my mind's got, like, to be fair, Jason, my mind's thinking a mortgage broker. The mortgage. Nothing about this is selling. It's not selling in any way, shape, or form. It's full advice and full recommendation. But like, if I'm a client, like, the different from what I would see from being a mortgage broker to financial advising is, I'm a mortgage broker. It generally means it's a lot of the time it's a home. So I can see the home, I can see where I'm going to live, I can see the street, I can see where the kids are going to school, I can see all the reasons why. Nobody wants a mortgage. Nobody wants to have
No.
in debt. Nobody. No. The last thing people want is a mortgage, and ultimately a mortgage broker's responsibility is to get that mortgage paid off as soon as people can physically pay it off, and that's what their job is to do. But ultimately, the mortgage brings the home, the house, where the kids go to school, the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, all those things that really sort of. So I've got this mortgage. I can see what that mortgage brings because I sleep in that bed. I live on that street. Do you know what I mean? Whereas from a financial advisor point of view, well, what does that look like? There is. It's like, do you get what I'm saying? It's
and that's one bit. There is an art to that, that is difficult to, because what you're trying to get the client to do is visualize it themselves, and they can do that, but it needs the help of the advisor to bring that out for them. So I suppose what you are doing, whether you've ever done anything artistic, but if you've ever drawn a picture and you do your first sketch, and you look back at it and think, right, okay, yeah, I can sort of see it coming together a bit now. You start finishing off that sketch, and then you start getting some color onto it, and all of a sudden, and before you know it, comes to life and it starts moving. Well, it doesn't if you paint a picture, but but that analogy, you've kind of got to get the clients to open up and think about themselves. And I think that's pretty rare in life, isn't it? You know, I can't remember the last time somebody stopped me in my tracks and said, Jason, yeah, really interested to know about yourself. Tell me all about yourself. Yeah. And you know what? I probably struggled to get going, but once I got into it, just it's human nature. You do like to talk about yourself, but you know you've got to have that opportunity in the first instance to start off and know that somebody's actually listening.
I think
So
I think it's a point 'cause like you say, you've got to, like you think about it from a client's point of view, that it's, yes, people like to talk about themselves, absolutely, but like you are painting pictures. You got going back to your artist reference. You are painting pictures for what people think, and a lot of people have got their head so much in the day to day, mundane,
yeah,
keeping the head above water,
understandably,
keeping that
yeah.
down, and that things like that. But they don't look up and think, do you know what? What does my retirement look like? What does that look like for me? And because I've got a pension, because it's employer contribution one that I like, they take money off me every single month, and the employer puts money in. And that's about because that they're forced to have one and been in that situation. Whereas people don't sort of think about, well, what does that look like? And people do, absolutely. I like see like clients, like young clients that have like, I want like my mortgage paid off by the time I'm 30. Like
Mm,
they're in on to the game, early doors, straight into it, lucky enough to buy a house very quickly, and ultimately all they're doing is investing every single penny they have to getting the mortgage paid off, which is great because they've got that goal to think, right, by
mm,
the time I'm 30, whatever that is, I want to have
yeah, the
this
financial freedom.
situation. I
Yeah,
want to have that situation.
yeah,
And it's the same from so that's the thing from a financial
yeah.
advisor point of view. That's why it's just totally different. I think that's my point is with it, is seeing what you do day to day from afar and not really sat with you day in,
Mm,
day out, but
mm,
looking at how you differ with clients compared to a mortgage broker. It's just a different
yeah.
journey.
It
It's a
is very
different
much so.
service.
Yeah. And you kind of just thinking about what you were saying just then, you've kind of got me thinking now as to, you know, one of the difficulties new people coming into this financial advice world might have, and that is, you know, the life experience. Um, you know, you get to my age and I look back and yeah, I've gathered quite a bit of life experience, and you know, gone through a few life stages, shall we say. So I can reflect on those and help other people that are younger than me now, you know, sort of plan for that, and you know, I can bring those scenarios to their minds to get them to think about it, because these are horizons that, you know, everybody else will come to at some stage in their life. So having that life experience myself, I think, you know, is certainly helping me help my clients. But yeah, I'm all for passing these things on, you know, and I think that's what we all should be doing. But there is an art to it. And yeah, you're right. People are very, very busy. We're all busy. We've got so much going on. You know, we are guilty that we don't take that time out to stop and think about ourselves and what we do actually want in the future, and whether that's the short term future, the medium, or the long term future. And that's what an appointment with a financial advisor, that's exactly what it will do. It'll buy you an hour and a half of time for somebody to spend talking to you about you. And yeah, I would encourage anybody to book an appointment and sit down with a financial advisor.
So why was it important for you to get into or back into financial advising? Because you was in it, then you was out of it. You then did what you
Yeah,
had your break a little bit and did what you did, and then
yeah, yeah.
got back into mortgage broking. Why
Mm.
ultimately did you want to get back into financial advising?
And that's a really good question, and we're delving deep into into my my personal. But you know, as I said, I don't mind sharing these things with people if it helps other people, and I hope that this does, because you know I'd been in the industry a long, long time and felt that I'd been in it too long, and I thought that the grass was greener, and I went over the wall and looked at the grass on the other side, and realized it still needed mowing, and they were just, you know, the same issues. But the one thing that I massively missed was, if I'm honest, was the lifestyle. So the lifestyle that I enjoyed from off the back of being a successful financial advisor, missed that massively. What I went to do was something that was way more in isolation, so I wasn't meeting so many people. Missed that aspect of it massively. And the buzz, the highs, the lows, I missed those. I missed the challenges. I missed the competition. All those things that at the time were all the things. I woke up one day, I thought, I hate all that. I've just had enough of doing all that. And then having to battle to get myself back into that position, then all of those things all became my rewards. That I was no longer in fear of them. I was no longer wanting to run away from them. They were things that I just suddenly dawned on me. I was crazy for walking away from that, and I really, really missed those aspects. And that's why I'm here now, and that's why I've got back into it. Yeah, we all make mistakes in life sometimes, and you know, maybe that was one of those, but yeah, maybe not.
No, Jason, I really appreciate you being, as I'd expected anyway, but like, I really appreciate you sort of being honest and really sharing on here about what you've, and the reasons why and the motivations. And that's what I love about this podcast, is that people come onto the podcast and share the real honest roots and the real honest challenges they face and things like that. And like being, like you say,
Yeah,
being transparent. I think that's we're not in the world of social media, in the world of everything else that goes on. It's easy to be like we've talked about, like making it look like amazing, like everything's sort of like you're painting the picture. We've talked about that on the other podcasts about sort of people within social media looking at telling people what to do and where to invest the money and all those things, when actually behind the scenes you start digging and stuff, it's so false. So I really sort of do appreciate you sort of sharing what you've sort of
yeah,
your experiences from that point of view,
yeah.
because you have got experiences and you've,
I
like you
have.
say, you pull that together. So
And there's lots of other people, those experiences. And it's those experiences that has built that, you know, the financial services that we know today. And there's been good aspects, you know, in the past, and there's been not so good aspects in the past. It has been a really tough sort of upbringing, shall we say, since the 90s, you know, to get to this stage at where we're at. The financial services has been transformed out of all recognition, totally and utterly transformed. And there was a big, nasty corporate world at bay some years ago, and a lot of us ended up in it and didn't really see what we were getting into and didn't agree with it. And yeah, it was a difficult place to be operating, which was why the RDR came in. That was the turning point. That's when everything changed for the better. Some will argue not so, but yeah, predominantly that's when it all changed for the better. And you know, post RDR is the world that I'm now in, and very, very happy to be here. But I'm not necessarily in that corporate world environment any longer, you know, because of just the way that we are structured at CS Financial Group. But that suits me down to the ground. I've got the best of both worlds.
and I think that's it, moving on to that and talking about that in terms of, because a mortgage broker sat listening to the podcast, or somebody thinking, yeah, I want to look after my client's holistic view. I can not only do the mortgages and the protection, but I can look after it from a pension point of view, longer term relationships and things like that. But one thing that and this is across the board, and like all the firm owners that I speak to, other people in the industry, mortgage brokers, for some reason, don't seem to be in the mindset. I don't have any opportunities for financial advice. My clients aren't like that. None of my clients have got opportunities for finance to refer to a financial advisor. What would you say to those people?
Well, if they've been listening, then it'll be something along the lines of what we've said earlier. In that, you know, everybody is going to go through certain life events and time horizons. Everybody is going to need some sort of financial advice at some point. Often, if you think about financial advice, it's generally planning around something that's well into the future. Okay. And that's why it's so difficult to get people to open their minds and think about it. It's why it's so difficult, because it potentially is years off. Oh, I don't need to worry about that. I'll never get there anyway, or whatever it might be. But it's about having that ability, again, to open somebody's mind up to thinking about the possibilities. And there's going to be no harm, is there? There's going to be absolutely no harm from sitting with Jason and talking about yourself for an hour and a half. There's no ill that can come of it. So why wouldn't you? But what you are going to find is that it's back to that person, that client is going to sit down and talk about themselves and open their minds up to the future, and planning for those sorts of things. Then it's going to make all the difference, because if you don't plan for these things, do you know what? They'll be around the corner before you know it. And if you've not planned for it, then life's not going to be that bed of roses that you were hoping it would probably just turn into organically, because life just doesn't happen like that generally. Sometimes it can do, but there's an opportunity everywhere you look. So whether it be somebody planning for retirement or pension planning, whether it be somebody looking for providing for dependents, for university fees, or just to help them get on the property ladder, whether it be saving for that, big special holiday or camper van, that's a really popular one at the moment. So all these things take dedication, time, and planning, and they don't just come, unexpected. You've got to plan for these things, and that's exactly what a financial advisor will do. But from a mortgage broker point of view, you have to tune in a little bit to that as well, because you're sat in front of that client, not me, and you have got a duty of care to make sure that client is looked after in every situation you can possibly think of. So it's your duty to make sure that you're not just sat there talking about that mortgage, because look on your business card, it's got advisor on there, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're providing advice, and you are also looking to enhance the offering that you're putting to that client. So if you've got specialists like myself who are just going to add to that overall level of service that you're going to provide, then why wouldn't you?
Definitely. Jason, appreciate you. Honestly, I appreciate you coming onto the podcast, talking about very openly and honestly about your journey, why you do it, the benefits of what you do, and sharing, like you say, your life experiences that and you'll be making many more. You will be making many more life experiences.
There'll be loads more to come.
Exactly.
I'll look back on in another 10 years, yeah?
10 years. Wow, okay, yeah.
Well, you'll be retired by then, though, won't you?
But do you think podcasting will still be going in 10 years? I hope so, because I love doing the podcast. I do enjoy doing the podcast. So,
yes, no.
Jason, anything we've missed? Anything we've not talked about? Anything you want to talk about on the podcast?
No, over to you, Craig.
Thanks very much. I'm quite shocked by that. Normally, you do have something final to say.
Do, and I've bitten my lip, so I'm not saying nothing. No. Nothing comes. No, nothing comes up.
Jason, I think it's good for me. Like I know, and I've known you for some years, and we've worked together for some years. And yeah, I know you as a person. It's easy for me to host and talk to you, and these things obviously you shared on there that was very open and honest, and things that I didn't know, and I think that's the thing with it, is that you do what you do for the right reasons. You're doing it, yes, there's the financial reward, but you're doing it from a service point of view, that you're doing it for the long term. That's always been your mindset and how you are, and it's about those long-term decisions, building clients for life, and all those sorts of things you talked about. I think the thing is, the reason why I wanted to get you on the podcast is because I do want I think we do need new blood financial advisors in the industry. We do.
Well, we've just got a new guy, haven't we, Jamie? We've just done a podcast with Jamie today. I mean, don't know about you, but it's just a rare light, isn't it? And I see somebody young like that. I can't help thinking about myself back then. And you watch, he'll be driving a Nissan Bluebird before you know it.
In his dreams. But joking apart, but like you say, it is like he's gone through the Open Work Academy. He's been onto the podcast, talked about that. I think
Yeah.
it's just a real, like I say, we're really promoting to get new blood into mortgage broking, absolutely. But it's the same again with financial advising. We need to bring the new advisors into the industry, good advisors. That is about. It's the same thing with it all, really. It's about service, not chasing the pound, not chasing the quick buck. It's a long-term career and all those sorts of things. But and I think you're being a bit shy there in talking about, because you are on social media. You do your LinkedIn, you do your Twitter, you do your Insta, you do those sorts of things. So, which is it is about educating clients and things like that. So, I
It
think
is
that's
about, yeah. It's good for getting that message out there and getting that message across. But I also want to say, you know, that if anybody is in fear of making this sort of transition, that if you join something like CS Financial Group as a financial advisor on the academy, like Jamie has, then he will share all that experience, that life experience, and that work experience that I've got, that is getting me by when I'm sat down with clients. You know, I will not hesitate to pass all of that on to, you know, to anybody else that's working with our firm. So yeah, it's there to be had if you want it. Just yeah, make that decision.
well, that's the thing. Like Jamie's still playing his trade as a mortgage broker. He's still doing the mortgage. He's still doing the protection. He's
Yeah.
just heightened his holistic view of his clients, because he can now talk about investments and pensions as well. So he's just
Yeah.
that's where he's going, isn't it? That's the thing with that. So
Yeah.
excellent, Jason. Thank you. We're going to end on that. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for agreeing to be on the Mortgage Broker
Oh, it's been
broadcast. I
my
really
pleasure.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
And we haven't even commented on your background or anything like that. So,
The
yeah,
corporate colours. I'm back in that corporate world. No chance. This is
exactly.
this is me.
Jace, thank you very much for your time, mate. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.